For the main topic today, we are discussing advisor fees. We want to understand them because if you're paying for a service, it's important for you to genuinely understand the value that's provided to you. There are some very strong opinions on both sides. Should you avoid advisor fees together, or is it really important for you to have a financial advisor? You'll get a lot of split opinions on the internet. And that's why, to get the ball rolling, I want to listen to this video with you from Jazz Wealth. This video is about 5 years old at the time of my recording. It's called 4 Things Many Financial Advisors Won't Tell You. Now, the first thing that Jazz Wealth covers at the start of this video is that dollar cost averaging weekly is better than dollar cost averaging monthly because you're hitting more points along the volatility in your investments during the accumulation phase. There's even a claim in the video that, as far as they know, at the point that this video was made, nobody else was really covering the statistics on weekly versus monthly dollar cost averaging for accumulation. To me, that sounds like excellent inspiration for a future episode, but let's not lose track of what's going on here. This segued into a conversation about assets under management. Many financial advisors will tell you that you want to get your money invested as soon as possible because of the time value of money. If you're interested in how that conversation went, I'll link the full video in the description below. But I'm really interested today in the second thing that, according to Jazz Wealth, most financial advisors won't tell you.
Number 2. Advisors won't tell you that some of you can actually just do this yourself, right? And it's sort of weird for me to say that because I should be telling you that you should be scared about investing and you should let me do it and come, work with Jazz Wealth. But the truth is, there are some of you that like to do this. You understand how to do it, or you want to learn how to do it. You have the time to do it. You have the passion to do it. And if that's the case, don't call me. Don't call anybody else. Go do it yourself, because there's a certain pride in doing that. It's like changing your brakes on an old car. Sure, you could pay somebody to do it, but if you have the interest in getting down there and doing it, there's a certain breed of person that has to do that.
I'm smiling quite a bit here because this reminds me so much of the tire situation, getting the tire patched by a professional versus doing it myself. Some of you may have a passion for fixing things on your car yourself as opposed to taking it to a professional. And if you're passionate about it, there's no reason for me to tell you you should go get your tire patched by a professional. If you know how to do it, you've done it before, you're comfortable with it, and you desire to do it, it could be the most frugal decision for you. And I'm tickled to hear an advisor say that if you have a passion for running your own investments, that DIYing is a legitimate option that can be encouraged.
I will never try to talk somebody out of a DIY approach to come use us. You would have to say, Dustin, I'm giving up. I don't want to do it anymore. I need more financial advice. I got married, had a baby, had a divorce all in the same year, and I lost my 401k because I cashed it out early, and I bought a house, but I had to give the house back to the bank, and I also have $40,000 in credit card debt. That would be someone I would say, okay, let's move the accounts over here. That's fair. We'll get started, and then, of course, we'll get your life straight.
I'm going to extend the car analogy now. He described a very complicated financial situation there where someone is overwhelmed with money, needing help. It's kind of like you might be passionate about fixing cars, but something really bad happens and you need someone who can deal with a more complicated issue that's a little over your head. There is nothing wrong with that. Even if you like repairing cars, there are situations where the most frugal option is going to be paying somebody to provide value with their experience, their expertise, and their service to best serve you. Okay, we've established that some of you out there are very passionate about managing investments, learning about investments, and doing it yourself. And there's some of you out there who don't share that same passion, don't share that same drive, and would like to have an expert working with you when it comes to investments. That video also established that there are simple situations where it's more than possible for you to take things on yourself, and there are more complicated situations where it can be very valuable to have an expert in your corner. And this begs the question with the knowledge that there is no such thing as a free lunch. If you need a financial advisor in your corner, it's important for you to understand what they cost. What we're going to do next is go over this Market Watch article called, "Are You Still Paying 1% to Your Financial Advisors? Here's What Might Make a Lot More Sense and Save You Tens of Thousands of Dollars." This article may have a bias when it comes to the topic of advisor fees, so don't worry, we're going to cover both sides of the story. This article was last updated in June of this year. It begins by saying, many financial advisors charge based on how much money they manage on your behalf, assets under management. And 1% of your total assets under management is a pretty standard fee. But Tss. If you have over a million, a flat fee might make a lot more financial sense for you. At least according to this article, that's what the pros say. The article continues with this quote: under $1 million of investable assets, the flat fee may consume a very large percentage of their account, and that would not be smart or advisable. In general, clients would do well to understand what percentage fees work well on smaller balances, while flat fees are best for large asset balances. And using the $1 million threshold can be an easy way to draw a line in the sand for a client. I'm going to add my 2 cents and say it's interesting that the article says that the $1 million threshold is an easy line to draw in the sand, but it might not be the most optimal. Let's keep going. Let's do some math to show you how much that 1% might cost you on a large account balance if you have, say, $3 million to invest and you hire a financial advisor at a typical fee of 0.8 to 1%. That's going to cost you $25,000 to $30,000 a year. But a flat fee can often be more affordable. On a portfolio like this, you might pay a little under $10,000 a year with a flat fee, which would save you between $15,000 and $20,000. At this point, I'm going to add that this approach makes sense if the value being received is the same. If you can get the same service for $10,000 with no lapse in quality, why would you spend $25,000 to $30,000 for it? The article moves on to quote a second financial planner named Chris. Why would a client with $4 million pay twice as much as a client with $2 million? They're getting the same or very similar service at a different price, which is inequitable and doesn't make sense. Just to play devil's advocate, it might make sense if the larger portfolio is more complicated or associated with a more complicated situation where more value is being provided, but there's an assumption there that the larger balance does merit that. And that's not necessarily the case. And then consider this. If you rolled a $500,000 balance into your $1 million account and now had to pay a set percentage of the now $1.5 million balance, is it really worth it to pay 50% more, that's more than $400 a month, just because you put more money into the account? Although the 1% asset under management fee is standard, it does not align with the time, energy, and expertise required to provide comprehensive financial advice and investment management services at different asset levels. I liked that example. If your portfolio value drops 20% during a market correction, has your advisor provided 20% less value? Percentage-based pricing is only affordable for both advisors and clients within a small portfolio range, say between $250,000 and $1 million. Though the 1% AUM fee is reasonable for clients with smaller account balances, most advisors require an account minimum and turn away young accumulators to maintain profitability for the firm. I'm going to step in here and say this is a problem I've seen with clients who've hired me. They're trying to get a financial advisor so that they can have an expert in their corner helping them learn about investments. But the advisors they've been talking to are turning them away because they just, at this point, don't have enough assets yet to make it worth the advisor's time because they're charging a percentage of assets under management. The article continues, many flat fee advisors set the same amount for each household, such as $7,500 per year paid monthly or quarterly. This would be an ideal annual fee for a client with investments exceeding $750,000. With an account balance of $2.5 million, the effective AUM percentage would be 0.3%, which is much lower than the industry standard. Once the annual fee exceeds $10,000, the service should directly reflect the complexity of the financial planning rather than the account balance itself. I sincerely sympathize here with financial advisors and their clients because it's going to be really difficult to come forward with a big dollar amount in a flat fee, even if it's less than a percentage, and say, I provide you X value with how complex your situation is. This is what I cost. I can see a lot more people saying, not worth it. But when there's a percentage of assets under management and the actual dollar value is veiled for what the fee's costing. Well, that might look a little bit more appealing if you're not doing an apples to apples comparison with dollar signs. The article wraps up by asking the question, can I negotiate the percentage I pay my advisor? The short answer is yes, according to Ken, a certified financial planner. While a 1% fee may be common, advisors who charge based on AUM are increasingly scaling down from 1% at lower thresholds in the past. But if you get a lot of service, the 1% fee isn't always a bad thing. What does the 1% fee pay for? This is the key question we're going to focus on. Of course, price is important, but just as with buying any product, it's not the only consideration and may not be the most important. In essence, the thing that I get from this particular article is that it's important to understand what sort of value we're getting from our financial advisors. And I mentioned just at the end there that a 1% fee or any percentage fee for assets under management may be difficult to understand unless we translate it over to dollars. So let's do that before we turn to the money guys to close out the main topic. If you can see the video portion of the podcast, I'm going to be going through a little spreadsheet that I made that acts basically as a retirement calculator from the accumulation phase through to the distribution phase based off of the inputs over here. Let's consider an example where an initial balance of $50,000 is invested for a 30-year-old who wants to retire at age 60. This 30-year-old is going to invest $1,000 every month. And every year they're going to increase their monthly contribution by 3% for the following 12 months to combat inflation. And this will be possible because hopefully the individual in question is getting raises year after year. For this example, we're going to assume that this individual is not going to have any pension. We're also going to assume that their investments will average 9%. Now, as a disclaimer, this calculator does not take into account market volatility, sequence of returns, risk, etc. It is simply a tool for us to illustrate comparisons for educational purposes only. It does not constitute financial advice. That being said, we're just going to take 3% as an assumed inflation rate. We're also going to assume that 3% is the minimum safe withdrawal rate that will permit this individual to cover their needs and needs alone. In contrast, the goal distribution rate is going to be 5% for this individual. 5% is going to be selected based off of this individual's desired retirement goals, correlating distribution strategy, and their tolerance for risk exposure. Oh, and their conservatively estimated time horizon for retirement. These last two inputs don't actually do anything to the calculator, but they're more or less a place for a user of this calculator to write down their goals. A goal for the minimum income that they need to meet their needs in today's money and their dream income that they are wanting to see month over month in retirement. Okay, let's talk about this graph here. Everything to the left of me is going to be the accumulation phase leading up to this point where the red line in the graph shoots straight up. This is the point of retirement. Everything that continues on to the right of this red line is the retirement phase. Now, the graph extends significantly longer than retirement lasts. That's because, well, the spreadsheet's designed to be dynamic. And I've taken sincere effort in trying to make this a tool that could be applied to anyone who's wanting to retire, be it traditional retirement or early retirement. Lastly, the results down here that I like to focus on are going to be the retirement nest egg value at the point of retirement, the likely minimum nest egg value at age 90, again, based off of a smooth curve, the minimum monthly retirement income. This is the income that is generated based off of the assumed minimum annual withdrawal rate in the inputs. In today's money, everything's inflation corrected, right? And then the base monthly retirement income. You can compare these numbers to the goals over here. In this example, the goals are a minimum of $2,500 a month and a dream goal of $5,000 a month. And for this calculator, given the accumulation inputs that we've put in here, the minimum retirement income result is $3,222. Meanwhile, the base monthly retirement income is over $5,300. Thus, the goals are met as the calculator is currently set up. Now, it's important to note that the anticipated starting nest egg value in today's money at retirement is almost $1.3 million. It's $1,289,118. And the anticipated value of the nest egg at age 90 is $2.4 million. And over here, I have an input for a financial advisor fee. So let's go ahead, per the Market Watch article, put the standard 1%. Well, this graph flattened out quite a bit. And the starting nest egg value is now just barely $1 million, $1,041,000. And the likely minimum nest egg at age 90 is almost the same in today's money, $1,093,000. And while the bare minimum monthly income is still above the assumed goal, it's $2,600 a month. Base retirement income now falls short of the $5,000 goal. It is $4,340. What we see here is the math that fervently inspires the DIY crowd that has a vendetta against the financial advising industry. The beginning nest egg value is $200,000, more than $200,000 less than what it could have been because of a 1% asset under management fee, which is in this case applied through the entire accumulation phase and distribution phase. And I think the biggest loss in differences here is the nest egg value at age 90 went from well over $2 million to almost being the same, corrected for inflation, for what you started with. Barely $1 million. But there's a big assumption that's happened here. We have not put any value that has been gleaned from going with a financial advisor. Let's say that you went with a financial advisor and they were able to get you just 1% more on return. Be this by stopping you from making poor decisions or being able to walk you into a portfolio that exceeds the risk that you would have taken on as a DIYer. So for example purposes, while we had a 9% growth, average growth in the calculator before, let's say it's 10% with a financial advisor and we keep that 1% fee. Well, now the ending values in the calculator are the exact same as they were before. Meaning that if a financial advisor is able to get you 1% more rate of return, again, by either helping you with your portfolio or preventing you from making bad decisions that could really damage your internal rate of return, they earn their keep. And if they exceed that, all the more power to them. I think what this example shows is that 1% of assets under management can be very expensive. It can be worth it, but you need to understand that there are trade-offs for that 1%. And you need to understand how your advisor is providing you value. You need to be able to ask your advisor, hey, how do you make money? How much is this going to cost me to have you help me with your service? And what value will I receive as a part of it? There are non-quantifiable portions of the value a financial advisor might be able to provide, just as they mentioned at the end of the Market Watch article. For that 1% fee, are you getting tax services? Are you getting financial planning that goes beyond just managing your investments? And I personally don't think I could hire an advisor for any type of fee, be it a percentage of asset under management or a flat fee, unless they were able to show me that they're providing me more value than what I'm paying them. And I want to be able to understand it. I want them to be able to say, this is the value that I provide to you that you cannot get as a do-it-yourselfer going alone. And that brings us to the very respectable video from the Money Guy show entitled The Real Impact of Financial Advisor Fees, a Case Study. I do sincerely like this show, and what you're about to see is a couple financial advisors getting very real in showing the math that I just shared with you and describing the value that they can provide for their fees.
How fees affect you. We're specifically going to talk about assets under management. So maybe you've seen this. You have an individual that has a $1.5 million portfolio, and someone says, okay, well, if you have $1 million portfolio and you can earn 8% over the next 25 years, it's going to turn into X. Well, if you add an advisor, that advisor is going to cost you nearly a quarter of the value over the life of your relationship. And so we actually ran the math on this. We said, okay, someone that starts with $1.5 million, earning 8% over 25 years as a do-it-yourselfer, at the end of that 25 years, their portfolio, without any additions, would be worth about $10.2 million. That's the way the math plays out. And so then what they said, oh, if you had an advisor and that advisor charged a 1% fee, by the time you got to the end of your 25 years, your portfolio is only going to be worth almost $8 million.
A reduction in value of 22% for a 1% advisor fee. Right here, they're straight up recognizing how much a 1% fee can cost you.
That advisor, that 1% fee, took 22% of your total terminal value.
Yeah, I mean, I love how simplistic that is, but the problem is it's excluding some pretty big assumptions. As you've already shared, the fees go down the bigger you are. Mm-hmm. So this person, as they started having success in their portfolio, reached 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, you're going to see some prices, it comes down substantially. This assumption only has value if you assume the fee stays 1% the whole time, even as you're getting bigger. And then you also assume
Indeed, before we get to that second assumption, there are going to be fee schedules that become cheaper and cheaper as you have more and more assets under management. I think this is in an effort to accommodate largely what the Market Watch article was covering, that as you get more and more money, a 1% fee is going to simply cost more than the value that's being provided you. So why not, as an advisor, provide a correction where you give a discount as a portfolio gets larger in order to more appropriately reflect the value that is being provided to the client? Now let's hear that second assumption.
You got no value out of the relationship, meaning that you should have just stayed a do-it-yourselfer and maximize this journey. And we kind of agree with you. If your life is simple and you don't feel like you're ever needing to reach out to an advisor for proper structure, making the right decisions, protecting you from making that fear and greed decisions that sometimes derail us, then what are you doing? But there are a lot of faults with the math of the way. Now, the math is right, but it's kind of like an error of omission. Yeah, it's still broken from reality because this isn't the way the math is really done in real life.
Okay, so
in essence, the flaw of the example where the rate of return is the same between what you get as a DIYer and with the financial advisor is that you do not get value from the relationship with the financial advisor. Even if you feel that you don't need a financial advisor, you may not know yourself well enough to realize the value that they can provide. I may feel, for example, going back to the car example, that I could patch the tire and I'm going to give it a shot anyway. But I'm not going to have the confidence or peace of mind that I would having had a professional do it. There is some intangible value here, and it's important for you to not only weigh the cost against that intangible value, but to truly reflect on yourself and say, is it worth it for you?
So let's see what a more realistic example would look like. You have the do-it-yourselfer, and then you have the poor example of the 1% fee. What if you have an advisor, and that advisor has a tiered fee that decreases as the portfolio grows, and then we said, let's do this. Vanguard, which was the study we looked at a couple minutes ago, said that an advisor on average could add 4.2% over annualized over the life of working with you based on all the stuff that they're doing. And we said, but you guys are financial mutants. So let's not even give the advisor credit for adding 4%. Let's cut it in half.
So that study from Vanguard may have a bias because Vanguard provides financial services, but it's quite possible, in my opinion, that you could have a reduction in internal rate of return by 4% or more by making poor decisions without the guidance of a financial advisor if you're not confident in what you're doing and are more reactive in fear, or if you're very confident with what you're doing, but you're making poor decisions that aren't informed because we don't know what we don't know.
Say you have an advisor because you're a really, really good do-it-yourselfer as a financial mutant, but hiring an advisor for you will add only 2%, where Vanguard found that it would actually add 4%. How does that break down? And just so you know, because you guys are going to ask the question, we went ahead and said, let's use our fee schedule. Our fee schedule here to Bound Wealth is 1.25% on the first million, 1% on the next two, 0.75 on the next two, and 0.5% over 5. So as your portfolio grows, the effective fee that you're paying decreases. What does that actually look like through time? Well, you can see in this example, if an advisor charges a fee but is able to add just 2% annually, instead of your do-it-yourselfer ending with $10.2 million, at the end of 25 years, that person with an advisor actually ended with $13.1 million, which is a 27.5% increase on terminal portfolio value.
Well, let's put some of this, because cost is what you pay, value is what you receive. If you're thinking about what your net result is, somebody who helps you structure your multiple million-dollar portfolio to where you know how to put your investments where they're more tax efficient, tax location matters. If you have somebody who helps you when you have all this tax deferred, it's like, because we all know the first account to reach $1 million status for wealthy people is their 401k. Well, that's also probably going to be taxed at ordinary income tax rates. Wouldn't it be nice if somebody could help you structure the timing of how you're going to decumulate, meaning you're going to withdraw that money out in a tax-favored way, where instead of you paying 37%, we can get it down to maybe even below 15%. Those things matter. And then when you get into the estate planning, the legacy goals, this is what we're talking about. If all this sounds like, who needs that? If that's not you, take the free stuff. But if you are listening to this and you say, man, I've had some success, and I am just realizing I just don't know what I don't know. I have blind spots. I also worried, what happens when I'm not here? Maybe I'm the financial mutant, but my spouse is not. You can't tell me that a person who has spent decades doing this, thousands of hours, helped people do this hundreds of times, there is value in knowing what your skill is, that 10,000 hours versus somebody who's coming in green as they can be and wondering, hey, am I making the right decision?
I think the Money Guy Show put that really well, and I think they did an amazing job explaining how they can provide value to you. They illustrated it. They went through a list of, for me, facets of personal financial management that I may not feel fully comfortable managing myself. Facets of personal financial management that may merit for you an expert in your corner who can provide you more value than they cost you. And my hope for you as a HopeFilled financial follower is that you can take today's episode to help you think more critically about your financial advisor decisions. With that, until next week, until next Tuesday, budget bravely and enjoy your hope-filled financial future.